Hey, what's up y'all? Welcome back to another video. This is stage 2 of Toward the Gila, which was the inner loop road race. And you can kind of see it starts out with a bunch of climbing, but then it's all downhill for a while with this crazy descent that I'll show you in just a bit. You kind of keep going through a lot of rollers through this valley, and then you kind of make this turn and then go to the finish, which also a little bit uphill, kind of like a false flat, 1 or 2%. So we're picking up with about 53 miles to go, and we're kind of getting near the top of the initial climb. And this is kind of when the feed zone starts before the descent. And up until this point, there's been a lot of interesting things that happened. Namely, our race got neutralized because there was a bad crash in the pro race, and I think the GC leader, who was Miguel Lopez, he crashed out of the race, and a bunch of other people crashed as well. So I think everyone overall ended up being okay, but that meant we had to stop for about 5 minutes before we could start riding again. And then we were kind of neutral for a while, but then they decided to unneutralize our race, and so it was kind of on from there. And so we were able to kind of do this climb with the racing being on, which I guess for me, I probably would have rathered us being neutral up this, since I was kind of struggling a little bit, but I ended up being able to stay on all through the earlier sections, and then also up until this point. And now that we're kind of basically at the top, I'm just kind of ready for the downhill. This is a long race. It's like 3.5 hours, and so kind of my mindset going in is just like, all right, if I can get to the top of this climb, I think I can stay on until the end of the race. And maybe I'll also even have a chance to sprint at the end and see if I can place pretty good, which I was hoping I'd be able to do, since the previous stage that you saw in the previous video, things didn't quite work out as I would have planned. But yeah, we're getting to the end of the feed zone, and this is also where the KOM line is, which in my head I'm like, this should be the top, right? And so you can see there's the line. So I'm like, all right, and then I see this, we're starting to go downhill here. And so I'm thinking, all right, great, I can finally catch my breath. I'm at 188 beats per minute on the heart rate, so not feeling super good after that. But and I see, like, right in front of me, Primal rider Nate. I know he's up there in the GC, and he's going to be competing for the GC. So I'm like, all right, I'm in a good place. Kind of plan on following him, but I see there's already some gaps forming a little bit through this downhill. And so, and the other thing that was going to make this very interesting is the fact that I had never have descended down this descent, and I think that's kind of similar for quite a few other people. So going into this blind, ripping turns was going to be quite interesting. But generally speaking, I'm a pretty good descender, but I'm also someone that's not going to take crazy risk, especially on something I'm not familiar with. But as you can see, it's like we're not even really going down. We're still kind of going up a little bit. We're kind of, it's up and down and everything. And so my heart rate is still pretty spiked, and I'm just like, man, can we just get onto the descent? But yeah, and also in the beginning of this, since I'm kind of still pretty damn tired, I'm just like not cornering super well either. So I kind of let a few gaps open up, but I'm going to try and close them right here. But yeah, and you can kind of see too, like, the pavement isn't amazing. It's not terrible, but definitely ridden better descents than this. Yeah, this guy's letting the gap open up, and I'm like, all right, well, I'm gonna try and get around him. It's just a a little bit harder getting around people on blind corners that you're going really fast and you're not familiar with. You're not really familiar with the riders and everything. So I'm gonna try and take my time coming around this guy. Still haven't found my way around this guy, and then this other guy's gonna force the move, and I'm like, all right, well, I think I need to ride maybe a tiny bit more aggressively than I was. It's being a little too cautious. But yeah, so I'm just gonna grab this guy's wheel and kind of follow him down here and see if I can make up, get back to kind of this, lead group down here. But, we're going flying, we're at about 43 miles per hour. So yeah, going pretty quick down here. I think I was getting a little more error than that guy, and so I kind of come around him. And so yeah, now I'm kind of bridging back up here, but there's still a lot of gaps forming, so I'm just gonna try and carry my speed, momentum around Nate there in the primal kit, and sliding behind this guy. Want to kind of see if he's gonna try and close the gap, but it doesn't quite look like it. And so he's gonna elbow me through, and so yeah, and it's like at this point, going downhill, it's like you're kind of running out of gears. But this other rider who was on my wheel comes around me, and now we're coming by one of the support vehicles, and this was a little bit sketchy. We're right around 40 miles per hour going through these turns, and fortunately I was able to get by the car without too much issue. But yeah, I mean, we're still flying here, and this descent is very long, and there's still some uphill sections to come even. So skipping ahead just a bit, finally kind of getting closer to the lead group, and the rider that's 2 in front of me, I think he got like 2nd or 3rd on the previous stage. So but this is like one of the uphill section I was talking about, kind of kicks up to about 7%, and I'm just like, man, I'm ready for the real downhill and the flats. But yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna follow Nate and the other guy. I'm just gonna try to, ride their wheels, get whatever draft I can, because I know they're not going to just let the wheel go. And so he's gonna make a big effort here, and I'm just gonna kind of sit in his draft. This is kind of like a flat section, like 0% grade. So fortunately I was able to follow this up because it was nice not having to use quite as much energy. But now, we're kind of back to the main group, and so I feel like I'm in really good position, kind of leading into the really fast downhill section. All right, the false flats and rollers are done, and now we're finally on the real downhill section here. And yeah, I mean, we're already kind of 40 miles per hour, and yeah, ripping these turns pretty good. And like I'd mentioned before, I haven't done this descent, so I'm being a little cautious, but definitely am trying to, stay in contact with this first group, because behind me, the field is just splintered. It's like everyone's kind of in these small little groups behind this main group. So, kind of one thing I'm thinking of is like, all right, once we get down this, if we have a gap, this might be the group that goes to the finish. I mean, it's 45 miles, so it's pretty long, but you kind of never know. But yeah, so this rider in black kit's just kind of doesn't look as confident, so I'm gonna try and make my way around him. And you can see we're getting super strung out here. I kind of, in that top little section didn't quite go as fast as I should have, but we're at 47, 48 miles per hour going down this. And we're about to hit the first switchback, which I'm going to try and make up a little bit of time on the brakes here. Gotta love disc brakes. And so make this turn decently well. But now we're going to be coming up to another switchback. And, you know, I'm just like trying to, like I said, make up as much time on the brakes as possible. But coming way too hot. Skid the tires. I locked up the rear, but I was able to get it stopped. But I kind of lost a little bit of time in that turn. So, but I'm still, you know, super focused, and I'm gonna keep trying to close the gap a little bit. And so now we're heading into this next turn here coming up. That's also pretty tight. And I'm just really riding this blind because I tried to have the map up on my Garmin so I could kind of look down to see when the tight turns were coming up, but it was just like, I guess, zoomed out too far, so it just looked like a bunch of zigzags, which was helpful. But yeah, so here, right down this part, here's the next tight turn. And if you see the rider 2 in front of me in the red, he's the GC leader, takes the turn bad, almost goes off the road, he unclips, and while he's trying to clip back in, he almost runs into this guy, and I'm like, oh my God. And then he starts looking down and almost goes off the road. I was like, man, that was quite a sequence of events. And once that kind of happened, I was just like, all right, we're almost down. I'm just gonna like take this pretty chill. There's no need to crash and run off the road or anything. Because also I'm trying to like peek back a little bit when I can, and I see there's like really not anyone close behind me. So I'm kind of by myself here, in between like the first group and then just like a bunch of people behind me. But I'm like, all right, if I maintain kind of like the same distance to the guy in red jersey, who's the GC leader, I know once we get onto the flats, he's super strong and he'll pull us back to the front group. And after a few more uneventful turns, we finally made it down. And now I'm slowly focused on closing this gap to these 2 guys in front of me. You know, I kind of let out a little bit more of a gap than I would have liked, but, you know, I was trying to just keep it upright. But yeah, this is painful, and I'm just like, man, I need to get on to their wheels before they all start rotating and going fast, and then I'm gonna get dropped by the lead group. So, but this is just painful because, you know, after being super tired going up that climb, and then you're really not able to like mentally rest at all going down a descent like that because you're just like having to pay so much attention. But yeah, you can see this is just painful. My heart rate's going back up like 185, and I'm just in the high 300s, low 400s, trying to balance between getting onto them fast, but also not just like blowing myself up trying to do it. And I see they're already starting to form a pace line. I'm just like, dang it. So that's where I kind of like get more into those mid 400s. And I'm just like, I gotta close this. I would hate to have like put a lot into that descent and then to miss the, you know, winning group going away. But fortunately was able to close it. It's always just so painful, these last little bits until you can finally get back on. But yeah, so end up closing it back here. And so now it's just, I think it's like 8 or 9 of us in this lead group. And at this point, you know, I had already looked back and there was really no one in sight at the time. And so I'm like, all right, well, maybe this is the move. But unfortunately, not too long later, a lot of people ended up catching back on. I think most of the field. You know, we all kind of just sat up, and, you know, people just kind of caught back on. So it was pretty uneventful from this point until kind of the finish. It was just kind of attrition up, you know, pretty steep rollers, and then like coasting on downhills and flats and stuff. So let's skip to the finish and look how the finish played out. We now have about 1.5 miles to go. We're coming into this right turn that I don't know what I was doing. I just kind of like didn't follow the appropriate wheels, and now I'm having to put out a bunch of power to close the gap, which isn't ideal. Right now too, my legs are just like shot. You know, we're like over 70 miles into this race and coming up on 3.5 hours, and I'm just like, don't have a lot in the tank. And so my plan for this, since the sprint seemed like it was going to be kind of long since it was uphill, was to just kind of plan to be a little bit further back, to maybe see if people died and maybe I was going to be able to get around. But yeah, I wasn't super confident about how the sprint was going to go. But yeah, I'm just going to try and like hold my position where I'm at right now, try to not surge too much, to just make sure my legs are ready to go. I figured if I executed this whole lead up to the sprint and the sprint perfectly, I could maybe get a top 10, just because I definitely didn't have like my usual sprint legs to be able to potentially win or podium or anything like that. But yeah, we're now just about 1K to go, and things are slowing up just a little bit, which is kind of predictable, but it's about to be where people are really going to start putting on the power. And so you can see it's kind of happening right now. And so I'm going to try and slot behind this guy. I don't want to like surge my power too much, but unfortunately, I think he was a bit tired. And so he's not going to close this gap. And so I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to have to go around him. And so gonna start going around him now, and I'm like, all right, let me get on this guy's wheel and maybe he'll bridge back up, but he doesn't. So I'm just like in no man's land, just eating a ton of wind, and this is just really not ideal at all. So unfortunately was not able to contest for the sprint at all. It was just way too far back, so I kind of really didn't execute as well as I would have wanted. But you know, after a long road race, I was just kind of happy to be with the front group at the finish. So thanks so much for watching. We're almost at 1,000 subscribers, so if you're liking these videos, definitely subscribe, like the video. It really helps continue to grow the channel. Next video will be stage 4, which was the crit. Stage 3 was the time trial. Didn't do well. Also didn't film it since it's a time trial. So yeah, stick around for the crit. It was a pretty exciting race. It had a interesting strategy going into it that y'all want to see how it played out. So yeah, thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.